All right. Well, thank you again for joining us this evening. We're so excited for all of you to be here tonight. Thank you for taking some time out of, I'm sure, your very busy schedules to join yet another Zoom meeting, but this is an exciting one. So tonight we have some awesome esteemed faculty that are going to join us in just a few minutes here to tell you all about their background, but also, and more importantly, answer your questions. So let me start with introducing myself. My name is Misty Sparrow. I am the Associate Director of Admissions here at Eastern Michigan University. I'm also a proud alumni of the university too. So I've worked at Eastern for the last 8 years now, and it's been an awesome experience for me. Originally, I came from Maryland, so I had an out-of-state college experience, and I'm really excited to be with you here again tonight. For all of you that are here and joining us, please feel free to utilize the chat box to introduce yourselves. Tell us your name, a little bit about the major you're maybe interested in, and also tell us where you're from. That'd be really nice to see kind of where we got students joining us from. So just a couple of housekeeping tips for me before I have our panelists join us on screen. So first, this session is designed for you to ask your questions to faculty. So we did get a good amount of questions during the registration form. So thank you so much to all of you that participated there. But please feel free to utilize the Q&A feature that you should see at the bottom of your screen tonight. We will be sure to answer all of your questions that you might have. This question is dedicated specifically for the faculty that we have here today. So sorry. So we've got faculty from all different colleges here. So just because you have a certain major, if you don't have a faculty panel on the panelists that is a major for you, you can still ask your questions. We'll do your best to answer, but also we'll get you the contact information for the folks that might be better equipped to answer the questions that you have. So briefly, just to go over a little bit, I'm so excited to see y'all kind of communicating with each other. We know that you all have been accepted to Eastern. So congratulations again, one more time from me. This is a really big decision-making process for you. And oftentimes there is a ton of different things that can help sway your decisions. Hopefully after tonight, you'll have a better understanding of what it could be like to be a student here on campus. So I do have 2 student tour guides that are also on the call with me. I'll have them introduce themselves a little later, but you might see their names popping up in the chat to help answer some some of your questions. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping things. Please make sure that you utilize the chat to communicate with us directly if there's any issues, but Q&A is really where we're going to be answering your questions from. And you should not have the ability to unmute yourself, but please make sure you keep yourselves muted so we can make sure that this is an effective session for all of our panelists to make sure that we hear everything. And then finally, we are recording this session. So if you have to leave or pop off a little bit early, don't worry, we'll be sending this out to all of our attendees and we'll be sure to post it on our website so you have some access as well there too. So sorry about those issues, but we can go ahead and get started. So I'll have my panelists join me on screen, please. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. I am going to turn it over to Stephen to get us started with introductions. And then after the introductions, we will go ahead and dive into your questions. So feel free to drop some questions in the chat. Dr. Jefferson.
Thanks very much. My name is Stephen Jefferson. I am trained as a clinical psychologist. I actually went to Michigan State University and finished and somehow decided I couldn't leave. My research interests primarily explore how experiences of discrimination influence people psychologically, particularly with regard to affect. I've been here now, 14 years, and I love it. It is probably one of the healthiest departments and universities I've worked at. It's not perfect, but for me, it fits perfectly. I really love working with the students here. And yes, at some point during this talk, I'll talk more about the department, but yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much. Jackie, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jackie Larose. I'm a professor in the teacher education department here at Eastern. I am primarily in the literacy program area, but I also teach courses in curriculum. And what's kind of cool is that I've been doing a special project where I have my students sometimes taking their classes with me right in an elementary school. So students who are preparing to be elementary teachers can have class with me in the school, and I supervise them doing some hours of field work in classrooms with kids before they student teach. These are in courses before they student teach. I also teach in the reading master's program, and I'm a New Yorker. I'm not a Michigander, but I've lived in Michigan now. I came here to do my PhD at MSU, and I've been here since 2002. So, but you know what? I'm from Buffalo, New York area. So this snow, I'm all over it. So welcome, and I'll be happy to answer questions if anybody out there wants to be a teacher.
Thank you. Let's go to Dr. Scuzzo next.
Hi, everyone. Welcome and congratulations on being accepted and continuing down your career path. So I'm Dr. Scuzzo. I am a physicist. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Physics and Astronomy here at Eastern. I've been here for 6 years, so not as long as some of the faculty members that have just introduced themselves, but my primary area of research is thin films. So we're talking about layers of materials that are thousands of times thinner than the hair on your head. So if you look at your glasses and see a reflection, and you don't see a white reflection of all the light from it, maybe it's green, maybe it's pink. I think you can see a little bit of green on my glasses as I move my head side to side. Those are thin films. So I'm able to fabricate thin films in my laboratory, study those films for electronics, for infrared sensors, for night vision goggles, all of that great stuff. And the great thing about Eastern is we're not a huge university, but we're not a small university. So we're able to have small class sizes, and undergraduate students get to work directly with professors in their laboratories. So I have a number of undergrad students and grad students that work in my laboratory. I'm an experimentalist, so it's all about hands-on. And I'm happy to answer questions that any of you might have about Eastern or physics and astronomy.
Thank you so much. That's so interesting about your glasses, because I look at that all the time. Let's head over to Christopher next, if you don't mind.
Yes, hi, I am Dr. Chris Skelish. I am, first of all, I am an Eastern alumni. I grew up in Macomb County, so I'm a Michigan native. Got my undergraduate here a few years ago. Spent about 20 years in the Army as an environmental science officer. And after I retired, I came back here. I've been here about 5 years. I'm a geologist. My specialty is in hydrogeology. So I focus mostly on contaminants in water and how to clean those up. And I also am in part of the Environmental Science and Society program. I did see at least one person who said they were interested in environmental science. So if you take environmental science in the fall, you'll actually be taking that course with me, the ENVI 107 course. So yeah, I do a lot of research, just like with Dr. Scuzzo, do a lot of research with students, especially undergraduates. We have an undergraduate focused program. So we have a lot of opportunities. And one thing I tell students is that if you take advantage of the opportunities that you have here at Eastern, you will get a world-class education. Doesn't matter, where you're going. If you're here, right, there are so many opportunities. You just have to reach out and take advantage of them.
Awesome. And last but certainly not least, let's go over to Dr. Kralik. Well, I do have to unmute you. One moment.
Okay. Good
There
evening.
you go.
Good evening. My name is Jim Krolick, and I'm a lecturer in the management department in the College of Business. I have been with the management department for now over 20 years. My background includes 2 administrative positions in human resource management at 2 major hospitals in the Detroit area. Been active in HR through attending meetings, workshops, seminars. I have my certification in human resource management through the professional organization. I'm also advisor for the student chapter of SHRM, which is a professional organization. What I'd like to tell you about the College of Business briefly is that I think we're all dedicated faculty members to all of you. We focus on helping you reach your career goals. And I think you'll find, as other individuals have said this evening, that our classrooms are small. We don't have large lecture rooms in the College of Business. And I think we try to work directly with you. And I think one of the special aspects of the faculty members at the College of Business is that we're really interested in you, and we try to work with you and help you reach your career goals. Thank you.
Awesome. And I'm going to have my two student tour guides introduce themselves. And then this is a great time to get any questions that you might have into our Q&A box. As soon as they introduce themselves, we'll go ahead and get started with some questions. Ashley, do you want to start with your introduction?
Hi, my name is Ashley. I am a senior here at Eastern in my last semester, hoping to graduate this April. I am in the College of Education, studying elementary education. I have worked for admissions for all 4 years as a certified tour guide and now as a student coordinator. I've also lived on campus and off campus. I've worked for housing as well. So I have a lot of good answers for those kinds of questions that you might have, but feel free to ask anything in the chat and we will make sure that we get that answered for you here today. And I'll pass it off to my colleague, Micaiah.
Thank you. My name is Micaiah. I am a junior here studying social work. I've worked in the Office of Admissions for about 3 years now as a certified tour guide, and I also work at the front desk. So if you pass by the office, you might see me. I'm also a resident advisor here on campus for our Live and Learning Community program called Sisterhood Scholars as well.
Great. Thank you all so much. Okay, so now we're going to turn it over. I'll turn my camera on. So we're going to start asking some questions now. We had a couple of questions come in with the registration form, and then just so everybody knows, if you see me looking over here, this is where your questions are. So the first question I have, and I'll actually open this to all of you to provide an answer if you'd like. Somebody asked, do you have a timely and open meeting time for students who need help in your classes? And I know office hours are a thing, so would anybody like to talk about those?
Yeah, I can go ahead and start. Yeah, so office hour is something that all faculty have, and especially, we make ourselves very available for students. The only issue usually is that not that we're not available, it's that students don't want to come to see us for office hours. And I tell students, if coming to office hours is a great way to make sure you're learning material and doing well in class, because not only can I help you with some of the course material, but you can have a conversation and kind of, I can learn a little bit about, who you are and what you want. And, like other people had said, our goal is to help you reach your goals. I always tell my students, I'm not mentoring you to make you like me. I'm helping you become the person that you want to be and have the career you want afterwards. And so you can't really learn that just in a classroom. Coming to office hours and kind of having those conversations is really important. And so, all of us have office hours that are posted. And if you can't make those hours, just reach out to us by email, and usually people are very flexible, and we'll just find a time you can meet either in person or on Zoom.
I'd like to echo what you said, in that now that we have some classes that are still virtual, many are still online, there are many in-person classes also. So I teach both kinds of classes. So sometimes I'll meet with students face-to-face, sometimes I'll meet with them on Zoom. And I think that all the faculty on campus are really appreciative when students do reach out. And we like to get to know the students. So the best thing you can do is reach out to your instructor and say, hey, and I may not be able to make it to your posted office hours, but could we meet sometime? And I'm always happy to do that, especially if there's the chance that there's a muffin or cookie or something involved.
I think it is an important point to reinforce. I think that's what makes EMU a special place. I think all of the faculty members are interested in you and will reach out if you need assistance or help. I think we pride ourselves in having that personal relationship with students.
And to echo the importance of this point and the sentiments that have already been expressed, in many majors, it's not just a good idea, it's actually essential that you meet with faculty outside of the classroom. In psychology, if you aren't meeting regularly with somebody in the department and engaging in your own independent research, if your plan is to go to graduate school, you will have a very difficult time of it. And so from your first semester at whatever school you choose to go to, it's a very good idea to regularly meet with faculty and make sure you know all of the stuff that needs to occur outside of the classroom to make sure that you're going to be successful in your academic and professional pursuits.
Awesome. All right. So just to address, we just got a question in the chat here. Somebody asked if I live on campus, I might have online classes. I just, in the way that this world is going, just to kind of clarify what we were talking about there, this winter semester, our first 2 weeks of classes were online. As you know, in Michigan here, we had a pretty significant spike of COVID-19 cases. So as students were coming back from holiday break, the administration decided to put our classes online for the first 2 weeks. This week was actually our first week of in-person classes. So we are back in person for courses. Many of our classes are being taught in person this semester. Unfortunately, we don't know what the virus will look like in the future. So we're hoping that we're heading in the right direction still, but if it comes to the safety of our faculty and staff, there may be a decision made where you might have to take some online courses. But maybe this is a good opportunity to also talk about our different formats of classes, because that's something that Eastern does pretty well. Would anybody like to talk a little bit about, or maybe somebody has taught hybrid courses in the past and can talk a little bit about that?
I can speak to that.
Sure.
There are a variety of ways that courses can be delivered now. Some courses are completely online in an asynchronous format, so that you don't meet together as a class. The coursework is all done through Canvas, which is our learning management system that you'll get very familiar with. So there will be videos, lectures, all the materials will be there for you, and deadlines for assignments, etc. You might also have a fully online class that is a synchronous class. That's like a class I teach right now, which means we do meet twice a week, and we meet on Zoom. So we don't meet face-to-face in person, but we meet on Zoom for our class. There are also some classes that are more of a hybrid format, where sometimes, and you'll know what days this happens, you'll meet face-to-face in person, and other times you'll be working online. And then there are classes that meet fully online, or excuse me, fully face-to-face. Those classes usually occur on campus. As I was mentioning, I do have a class that meets in an elementary school. We are face-to-face in the elementary school because students are also working in classrooms. And I think that, and someone could correct me if I'm wrong, there are other classes that would be like that. For example, in the College of Health and Human Services. Some of those might meet in other places.
Thank you so much. All right, so let's move. Oh,
I was just
yeah,
going to
sure.
add real quick. Yeah, so a lot of our classes have been online for different formats, like Jackie was talking about. But I know as a geologist, we have a lot of lab-based courses. So actually, I've been teaching pretty much in person throughout the pandemic with lots of precautions, right? We're wearing masks. You watch some of the videos from last year, actually, you see lots of pictures of me teaching one of my classes. Students are all spaced out. We have 0 cases of transmission in a classroom of COVID because we're using all of these things, and we either have students either are vaccinated or they're testing weekly. So there are a lot of precautions in there. We're definitely still teaching classes in the traditional in-person format, but there are other options as well.
Awesome. Okay, there are some really great questions in the chat here, so we're going to get started with some of those. So somebody wants to know, does Eastern offer online summer courses or just summer classes in general? And is that a good way to make the fall semester lighter? Any thoughts on your summer coursework?
the College of Business does have a variety of summer classes in all of the different specialties, whether it's accounting or finance or management or marketing. The schedule is usually more limited. So it really depends on your concentration in one of the majors that you're in the College of Business, but there are options. And some of them are in these different formats that Jacqueline talked about as well.
Awesome. Okay, so we are getting a couple questions about LBC credits. Does anybody feel comfy taking or talking a little bit about those learning beyond the classroom credits?
Yeah, I can. I teach several learning beyond the classroom courses. So those take lots of different options. I have a course I teach. Well, I can't teach it right now because of the pandemic, but it's called Regional Geology Field Trip, where I put students in a van and we drive to Colorado and you spend 10 days out looking at, real geology, mountains and giant sand dunes. So there's those types of kind of field experience. But then I have another course I teach in a program called Creative Scientific Inquiry Experience, CSIE, where we actually take students that are interested in STEM. So any of you who are interested in STEM can take one of these courses, really anybody can. And instead of just learning a bunch of math and science, we actually go out and do like community outreach events where we're teaching, testing rural community homeowners well water for nitrates and things like that, and communicating health risks to them. So you can do that, or you can go to lectures. So you can go to different talks on different things. So there's lots of different categories of what you want, but there's lots of ways. Some of them are through formal courses like I just described. I'm also the environmental science internship coordinator. And if you do an internship, you can get LBC credit, right? So there's so many ways you can get your LBC credit through formal courses or some of these other more informal things.
And then the individual things.
What a great segue. Somebody has questions about internships. So can you maybe talk about some internship opportunities within maybe your specific colleges or programs, or maybe highlight some students that have done some pretty cool ones that you've worked with in the past?
Okay. Somebody else want to say something first before I go? I don't want to hog it all. No. Okay. Well, so I'm actually the internship coordinator. So both for the environmental science and society program and for our geology majors. So I do a lot of coordinating with government agencies, with private companies and other like nonprofits. And I make all these connections. And then what I do is I help students actually find a internship opportunity. Some of them are unpaid, like the Huron River Watershed Council will take interns kind of on an unpaid basis, like 10 hours a week, you can work with them. Others, if you work for an environmental consulting firm, would be paid. And in the summer, you can work 40 hours a week for them, actually going out there and doing hands-on work. But we really encourage internships because that's where you really get to see what is it like to work in that field. Because people think, oh, college is taking a bunch of classes, I get a degree, and then I'll figure my future out. And that's not what you want to be doing. You want to have a good idea of what you're going to be doing. And also the internship gives you those contacts so that people get to know who you are and you get to know them. And it makes it a lot easier because networking is really how you find a job.
If I could put in a plug for student organizations as well. The College of Business has probably 10 different student organizations. For example, I mentioned that I was the student advisor for the TRUEMU chapter, which is a Society for Human Resource Management. That chapter is extremely active, has won numerous national recognitions for the activities that they get involved in. But more importantly, you get a chance to meet professional individuals in HR so that as internship possibilities exist, or even summer jobs sometimes by being active in SHRM, and I think marketing and other academic majors in the College of Business would say the same thing, that it just really opens up doors for you. So many times being involved in student organizations can help in lots of things like internships and, again, opening up career doors as well.
I'm going to jump on that from the teacher education perspective also. It's really important to us that we get students out into the field, in this case, meaning schools, as early as possible. So if you are interested in becoming a teacher, one of the things that you'll find when you come to Eastern is right away you'll take a class that's actually a brand new class that will give you exposure and experience with teaching at all levels, right from early childhood up through secondary levels. And we have many, many opportunities for students so connected to our classes for students to be working in schools with kids, because I know one of my colleagues said, you know, that's often how you get a job.
I'll add to all of that and just put a plug in that there are a number of opportunities for students to get involved with faculty members. There's an undergraduate research program where a student can write a research proposal with a faculty member and get a stipend to do that work either during a fall or a winter semester or over the summer semesters. And so many students do that each and every year.
Hey, Misty, I'm going to throw a wrench in your works, maybe. I'm looking at the Q&A and I see a really important question. They're all important, but one that might be best answered live from Nina.
My gosh, that was my next question. You go.
Really?
It was.
What is your expectations for students? Oops, I just lost it in the Q&A.
I'm sorry, I got it here. I even messaged Nina. I said, great question. I'm going to ask that one next. So I would love to hear, what are your expectations for students, especially, you know, with seniors, which most of these folks are, and how they transition to college. COVID has thrown a lot of students' learning styles and so forth. And so, you know, how would you accommodate or have, you know, students accommodate based on your teaching in the classroom?
I know that for me and in the College of Ed, and maybe it's because it's the business we're in teacher ed, we're trying to model for our own students who are going to be teachers. We are very conscious of that undercurrent of stress and uncertainty that has pervaded not just students' lives, but staff's lives as well. So we've all been we were all disrupted a bit when we had to, you know, pivot, and for many people teach online for the first time. I do think that faculty, instructors are really conscious of the fact that this hasn't ended, that we are working together to make sure, as I think it was Jim said, that we meet your needs and we give you the best education you can get. Eastern has done a great job of keeping students safe. And that's really our top priority, is keeping you safe and figuring out the best way to give you the best education in some stressful circumstances. I hope I kind of answered that question, and I'll let somebody else take over.
It's actually a really good segue as well, too. And then I saw Dr. Jefferson, I'll go it over to you to talk about accommodations in the classroom in general. We had another questions about that for students that might have any, you know, special accommodation needs. Do you have experience with that as well, too, in the classroom?
Yeah, I'll say that for me, I think about the education of my students more in terms of sort of like a mastery model rather than sort of like a traditional sort of like you earn this grade and the grade has meaning. It doesn't mean that I don't give grades, and it doesn't mean that the grades don't have meaning, but really what I'm more interested in is helping students figure out how they can be successful in the kinds of spaces that I teach. Like I teach a range of psych classes like abnormal or human sexuality and a number of classes. And in that diversity of courses, it allows me to adopt different formats. So sometimes I can have writing requirements. Sometimes I can just do sort of, multiple choice tests. Sometimes I have oral exams. And so I feel like it's part of my job to respectfully sort of work hard to do, to the degree that is possible and reasonable, what I can to accommodate students who may have particular needs that are maybe atypical, but also in that process help the student sort of learn about their learning style, so that when they move on to the next class, they can use hopefully the kinds of skills that they sort of capitalized on in my class in other spaces. So I think it's important to be flexible, to meet students where they are, and that's how I teach my classes.
Yeah, I'll echo that as well, because it is a balance, right? We're here to support students, and we have challenges, and there are some questions too. I see, can also address, we have the Disability Resource Center. You can get an accommodation letter if you need more time on exams. We have a called Kate Lab. If you say, I need 1.5 times for my exam, we can set that up. Other accommodations, faculty work very hard for that. But we also have to balance that with the fact that you need to make sure that, you're learning the material and you're mastering that, especially, like if I'm teaching environmental science or physical geology, the 100 level class, if you don't learn the material, you're going to take the next class and you're going to really struggle and you'll never really make it through your program. So we have to kind of balance that out, but we are very flexible on how we get there. But at the end of the day, we have to make sure that you kind of take what you need out of that class so that you're prepared for, kind of the next steps in your career.
Sometimes the problem can be resolved very easily just by pure communication with the instructor. I'm not sure why some students don't talk to us when issues come up. I think generally we're human, we're understanding, we know things happen in your lives. And I think when I'm approached by a student that tells me an issue or problem has occurred, I think my approach, and I think I speak for other faculty members in the College of Business, and I think in the entire university, we try to work with you. We know it happens, but when you're telling us what the issues are and how can we work together and solve the problem, it just makes it a better solution. So I would say that I think generally you'll find faculty members that are willing to work with you and help you, as long as they know that you're going to do the things that you need to do on your end. We'll try to accommodate whatever issues or problems that we'll face together in the classroom.
Awesome. I just as an alumni, I think that's incredibly true. I have friends and colleagues that work with a lot of other institutions, and they are oftentimes blown away by how hard our faculty work for our students. So everything that they're saying is an experience that I've had, and I know my tour guides on the call have had as well too. So very true. Okay, next question we've got, which is really exciting for me because this is also what I think about doing. Somebody says, my name is Sophie, and I'm hoping to someday become a library director. Very cool, Sophie. And majoring in business administration, but also potentially nonprofit management. Struggling to decide whether or not I should do one major or one as a minor or do a double major. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between a double major and having a major as a minor? Are there any differences or drawbacks or benefits? Does anybody feel comfy taking that question? I know it's a little bit more advising side, so I'm happy to jump in, but I just want to pop over and see if anybody's kind of had an experience there.
Well, I think the challenge of having two majors is that you accumulate an awful lot of credits. And I think that not only is expensive, but it extends the time that you're an undergrad. And I'm not sure that's always the best thing to do. My advice would be you're going to enter, let's say as a first year student, really explore and get into a deep dive into both of these areas, career areas that you're looking at. And then you'll have to make a decision because you'll enter a college or school as a junior. You might have to take that step forward. Maybe it's a gamble that this particular major is a better choice at this point in your life than the other one. But I think it's important to focus, and sometimes that takes a lot of work, but you need to do it because, again, doing a double major would mean an awful lot of credit hours, more time, and you may find that the one major that you would prefer over the other could get the job done as well. And there's always graduate school, and you can always take additional coursework in minor concentrations or areas where you might have an interest. Maybe 2 or 3 courses in a particular area might give you the talking points and the professional jargon to sell yourself very effectively in a in a minor area. So let's say you were having to choose between business administration and hospital administration. Hospital administration tends to specialize you a little bit more than a general area like business administration. So let's say if you chose hospital administration, you might be too narrow in your focus. So when you finished Eastern, maybe you might think, I don't want to go into hospital administration. So now what do I do? Having maybe a business administration major would prepare you for different kinds of areas, nonprofit, for-profit, government, so on and so forth. So that's, I think, how I would approach it.
I guess the other thing I would say, and there was somebody, I just see another question about how many times can you change your major? I will tell you, and I don't forget what the exact numbers are, but I think it's like at least 40% of freshmen will graduate with a different major than they come in with. So that's the thing. And I will tell you that from experience, because I teach both environmental science and physical geology, especially geology is what we call a discovery major. Most of our majors, they were whatever, they could be a business major, or they could be, education major, or be whatever. And then they take physical geology and then they're like, wow, this is what I want to do, right? And then they like change their major. So I tell people, you make sure you're taking your gen eds and kind of exploring your options and don't get too far in. And if you're like, I'm going to double major my freshman year, I'm going to take all these courses in that major. And then you take a gen ed and you realize, oh no, this is really what I want to do. Then you're probably going to have to extend your time at Eastern by at least a year, because now you've taken a lot of classes that might not count for that new major. So kind of explore your options and don't commit too heavily your freshman year and kind of see what's going on. And that's kind of the big thing too. In terms of how often can you change your major, you can change it as often as you want. But I've had people that were juniors, they take a geology class and they change their major. And then they're like, well, I want to graduate in the next 3 semesters. Well, you can't do that because now you got to take all these geology classes. So now you're going to be here for 5 years or maybe even 6 years, depending on how things work out. So keep your options open, explore things, because the class that, you might not even realize that was something you could do. Now you take a class in it to meet a gen ed requirement. And now this is what you're going to do for the rest of your life, because now you realize you've never been exposed to it. Like most people in high school don't take a geology class, and then they take it. And then they realize that's what they want to do.
Great advice. You will meet with an academic advisor if you decide to come to Eastern to get registered for classes, and they can help you kind of figure that out as far as picking a major, having a minor, maybe a double major, whatever is best for you. I did graduate with 2 majors, so it's not impossible, and I changed my major lots of times. So it's all about your dedication. So as far in a graduate in 4 years, so like there's a lot of things, but so don't count yourself out yet. But this is awesome advice to consider, because these are the folks in the field. So if you have questions like this, good questions. So another question we have, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, but I'm kind of curious from your all's perspective. Somebody asked, are classes more lecture-based or activity-based? And obviously there's some things that depend, but anybody want to take that?
I'll go ahead and say that it's typically mixed, and it depends on the instructor who's teaching the course. So the best thing I can always say to students is talk to faculty members, and more importantly, talk to other students, talk to senior level students. You're going to get the straight answer from the students, whether it's grad students or undergraduate students. And at least in the physics and astronomy department, we try and do a mix. Some lectures during the week are sort of a traditional lecture, and others are activity-based, student-centered activities, a flipped classroom. We do the whole gamut in our department, and I know that is done in pretty much all of the other departments on campus. So it really depends.
Awesome.
I would agree with that advice to talk to other students to get a sense also of how different instructors work. A great thing about Eastern is while courses have certain standards and objectives, if a course is taught in 3 different sections by 3 different instructors, they're not necessarily taught in the same way. But I would say that most of the time it's a mix. at least in College of Ed, it's definitely a mix because we're trying to promote differentiation in teaching and learning. And so we know that a lot of students don't learn best by one way or the other. So we try to put in a mix.
Yeah, that was something I saw in one of the other questions. People said, you know, is this class I want offered at a time that's convenient for me? Well, there's usually multiple sections, especially for our intro courses. And so you might say, hey, like I'll teach my class at 9:30 in the morning to 10:45. And some students are like, I don't want to take a 9:30 class. I want to take it at 2. Okay, maybe there's another section at 2. But then, like I said, you also have to figure out, well, who's teaching that? And if you're like, well, this person just kind of lectures more and this person is more hands-on, you have to kind of figure out, you know, kind of which kind of mode you're kind of interested in, because all of us have a slightly different teaching style. Although, you know, we're all very interested in engaging students and kind of doing that. But I have colleagues, they are amazing storytellers. And so they give these lectures where they're just telling these stories. It's very engaging. To me, I kind of do that, but then I have more of a discussion, and then I have little class activities where you're like working with your neighbors and you're doing other things. And so all of us have different ways to do that. And then you have to kind of figure out, you know, kind of what works best for you too.
You bring up a good point about if you're a night person, don't take an 8:30 class or a 9 o'clock. Take an afternoon class when you're awake. Sometimes it just, you know, makes sense. Maybe if you have a choice where, you know, you can take a class later in the morning session or in the early afternoon session, it might make more sense than having 8:30 classes 4 days a week. And you're up till 2 or 3 o'clock just because that's the way your body works. It's sometimes makes it more challenging.
Awesome.
And I'll piggyback on that and just say that's why it's really important to talk to a faculty member in the department that you want to major in, because we know the ins and outs of the program. We know when courses are typically offered. We'll set up a plan of study for you. So that's why, you know, go see and talk to faculty members and professors. We're not scary people.
That is really an excellent point. Boy, I think sometimes when we're asked to, if I can visit a class, can I sit in your class and see what it's like? More than welcome. You don't have to be paying tuition at that point, because I think then you make a better choice on maybe selecting an instructor or selecting a course title, whatever. I mean, I think that's why we're here, and that's what we want you to do, because then we know you'll be more satisfied in what you do, and you'll work harder, and there'll be lots of positive outcomes with that. Don't be afraid of it. We're interested in you.
Yeah, and I just saw something related. I'll just kind of follow up with that. It said, can we ask questions in class for understanding, or you just sit there and listen? No, you need to be asking questions, right? And I'll be asking you questions, right? So if I'm going to talk about a topic, I'll say, now, you know, I'll bring up an example or, you know, something from personal experience. And my classes are not me talking for 75 minutes. I would bore myself if I did that. It's right. About a dialogue and getting students engaged and asking questions. And yeah, I definitely want the student to raise their hand. Like, I'm not quite sure about that. Okay, well, let's circle back around and we'll talk about it. And I'll approach it a different way, because you're probably not the only person that has that issue. But, you know, a lot of the classes we teach are, you know, around 30 students. We don't have like 400 seat lecture hall, you know, some other schools do, where, okay, there's 400 people in this room with me. I'm probably not going to want to raise my hand. It's a lot easier to ask a question when you've got, you know, 25, 30 people in a room instead of 400.
Good point.
Awesome. Okay. So we have time for a couple more questions. I see a lot of questions in the chat asking about next steps. Don't worry, I'm not ignoring those. I'll definitely get to those at the end there. But I want to make sure that we get these questions for the faculty answered first. So I'm wondering, we had a question about the Honors College earlier today. Have any of you taught honors courses or maybe been an honors advisor or have that experience and can talk about that?
I'm actually our department honors advisor, and I'm involved. Actually, I went through honors when I was a student, but that was a while ago. Yeah, I did see some questions about that for applying for honors. If you go to the honors website, they kind of goes through the whole process through there. And I know they're kind of tweaking some of that too due to the pandemic. and also trying to encourage more transfer students, which I don't know how many of you are transfer students as well, but that's usually it's kind of geared towards an incoming freshman. But there's definitely a process. You go through the application, look at your grades. I think you still write an essay. I haven't looked recently, but you go through the whole process. It's pretty straightforward, and then you'll find out. I highly recommend the Honors College. It's a lot of great opportunities. There's the Honors Dorm. I think they're moving to Best next year because of renovations. But you have, now I lived in the Honors Dorm back in the day. So you're around kind of a lot of like-minded students. And there's just a lot of great opportunities, not only academic to take honors courses, which are smaller. You get like 20, 25 students, and they're all honors. So the courses are taught a little differently. And then you can also have a lot of outside opportunities as well. They bring in guest lecturers and have different events. Well, before the pandemic, they were taking trips and doing international experiences. It's a little limited now because of the pandemic, but there are a lot of amazing opportunities. But you can find a lot of that online, and if you have questions, you can send emails and you can get somebody from honors to follow up with you. But each department has an honors advisor like me, so I help all of our honors students, because you can get kind of university honors and just gen ed, or you can get honors in a lot of departments as well. So when I graduated from Eastern, I actually had both. I had kind of the university honors, and I got honors in geology. So I wrote a senior thesis, I did research, and then took some honors courses.
And I can say that sometimes you might not take a course that is designated as an honors section, but you can ask an instructor if you can take their course for honors credit. And I have done that many times with students and usually I have the student design it with me, what additional work they'll do in the course in order to earn honors credit. I've also mentored students through their senior thesis for honors credit or for honors recognition. And that's a really interesting experience. So there are plenty of ways to do that. And it's not, as Chris pointed out, it's not solely based on your GPA to be involved with honors.
And sometimes I think students believe that if they can get sort of an honors sort of certification after their name on their diploma when they graduate, or however they want to use it, they think that, how to put this, that the impact of that will be huge. And I'm not trying to minimize the importance of it. Like, it is nice to have on your transcript. It is impressive, but really, I think if you're thinking about doing honors, what I hope you appreciate is that in the honors courses, at least when I teach them, the goal is to have a sort of more depthful experience, sort of a higher level of understanding. And so that's why you do more in the honors class. And so when you leave, you actually are better at the things that you focused on when you were doing your sort of honor specializations. And that's where I think the real strength from honors comes, that like you do a thesis, at least in psychology. It sounds like in other programs, you do a thesis for honors in psychology that you wouldn't do if you were not an honors psychology major. And doing that thesis better prepares you if you're going to grad school, if you're going to continue writing paper and doing research, et cetera. And so don't think about it just as as an ornamentation or something you can put after your name that is impressive. Think about it as an opportunity to dig more deeply into the information with faculty who are also excited about it.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Okay, so probably time for one or two more questions. There's been quite a few questions asking about scholarships. So again, admissions offer scholarships for students who have been accepted to Eastern, but anybody talk a little bit about departmental scholarships that might be available for students and what that process looks like?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please go.
In College of Ed, there are lots of scholarships. There are probably, there are scholarships that are just in the department, and there are 3 departments in the College of Education. There's teacher education, of which I'm on faculty. There's the Department of Educational Leadership and Counseling, and then there is the Department of Special Education. Each of those departments has many scholarships, and there's also the College of Ed has scholarships at the college level. There's a lot of publicity about when those applications for scholarships are due. And for the most part, you just have to do like one application, even though there might be 30 different scholarships in the College of Education. You do one, and then there is a vetting committee that goes through and looks and tries to find the best matches to win scholarships.
Mhm.
So I'll just echo that, it's the same in the various colleges, arts and sciences. That's where physics and astronomy is. And the Office of Financial Aid has a searchable database right on the EMU website that has all of these opportunities for students.
Amazing. I'll drop that link in the chat for you all. And our last question, actually, I think Dr. Kralik, this is probably the best one for you. This says, for 300 level business courses, what would you say are the weed out courses? Are there 300 level business courses that I'd be better off taking? So can you talk a little bit about the secondary admission process to the College of Business maybe, and maybe a little bit specifically about that process?
Yeah,
for
what
students?
happens typically if you come in as a first year student, you spend the first 2 years taking gen ed and about 6 courses that are offered out of the College of Business. Like one of the first ones we want you to take is Intro to Business. Some of you might have taken that in high school, because some schools do offer it, some high schools. But we offer it in the College of Business, and it's an introductory course to business, which covers all of the different disciplines of business. But it's also a way for us to get to meet you and you know us. So through that, I think it lays the foundation for what's going to happen as you go through those first 2 years. Probably in the College of Business, one of the challenges for students is decision science and its statistics. And I think depending on your background, not necessarily a math course, it's not that, but obviously the type of challenges in that course may be new to students that haven't been exposed to a course like that before. They enter it here in the College of Business. So I think those are, that class in particular, I would just share with you, it's not unusual for a student to take that maybe a second time to get through it, because it is a requirement that you have to pass it. My advice is to take it at a community college during the summer and transfer it to Eastern, because the grade doesn't transfer, just the credit. So it doesn't impact your GPA at Eastern. So if you have an opportunity to take a class that is required in the College of Business in those first 2 years, you can take it at a community college during the summer. Go ahead and just transfer it to Eastern. But the 300 level classes, I think by that point, you're heading towards your concentration. And I just think you feel better about them because they're kind of helping you prepare yourself for what you want to do with your life. So if you're in entrepreneurship or human resources, you're taking classes that pertain to those fields of study. And I think because you're there, it just makes a difference. Maybe the first 2 years, you're kind of still trying to figure out what you might want to major in. So you take a marketing course, you take an accounting course, and after maybe having one of those courses, you might decide, man, I don't think I want to be an accountant after sitting through an intro to accounting class. So I don't think it's intended to weed you out. I think it's just intended to help you make those decisions about what you'd like to major in as you come into the College of Business as a junior. And the process is very simple. You have to have a certain grade point average requirement, and you have to have these prereqs done before your junior year. But it's a pretty easy transition.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so I have one final question for all of you, but I'm going to be nice and give you some time to think about it. So I want to know what your favorite thing about Eastern Michigan University or teaching at Eastern is. And while you're thinking about it, there was a lot of questions that we got about your next steps. So for those of you that are still here, I'm going to pull up on my screen just something for you to kind of take a look at. So congratulations again, you all have been accepted, and thanks so much for joining us during this session today. If you're ready to take your next step and join us and these awesome faculty members and our students here, we would love to have you. So our website that you can go to, and I will put it in the chat, is emish.edu/admit. It gives you a really great checklist of everything that you need to get done next. So the first thing you'll need to do is activate your student account. Your my.emish account is basically your web portal. So this will be how you register for classes. It's also how you can activate your student email address, which is how these folks will get in touch with you. After that, you definitely need to fill out your EMU enrollment form. So this form really gets everything moving for your next steps as far as orientation goes. So this year, our orientation process, there are 3 steps. The first is filling out this EMU enrollment form. The second is you'll get access to our online portal, which will be an online function for you to go through and make sure that you're getting everything you need to know about the university before you come for your SOAR, which is your Student Orientation, Advising, and Registration Day. So you'll pick one of your SOAR dates to come and visit. On that day, you'll be able to meet with an academic advisor. We split you up based on your major. So if you know what you want to study, you'll be assigned one of your college advisors. If you're undecided, we call you an exploratory student here at Eastern, and you still get a lot of information and will help you get registered for some of those general education classes we talked about tonight. You'll be able to then attend SOAR, get registered for classes. And if you're planning to live on campus, our housing application will be opening usually in early May. So we don't have an exact date just yet, but early May is when you'll be hearing from us for housing purposes. If you have questions at all, please get in touch with your admissions advisor. We're always here to help. So I'm going to drop one more link in the chat. emish.edu/meet the staff is a way that you can get in touch with us, and we will get in touch with you to help you with your next steps. Okay, so back to our faculty. So our final question, what's your favorite thing about Eastern? Would anybody like to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first, especially because I'm an alum of Eastern. I mean, my favorite thing are the students. I mean, the first day of every class, anybody's taking a class with me, the first thing I tell them is that I went to Eastern. I worked at the Rec IM. So if you want to work on campus, that was another question. Go work at the Rec IM. It's awesome. Right. I worked on campus. I did all of that. You know, I understand where our students are coming from. They're hardworking. They are here for a reason. And that reason is because they want to improve themselves and they want to do something. They're not here because, oh, well, you know, somebody told me I just have to go do something. And so I'm going to go to college and I'm just going to hang out and who cares what I do later. These are people that are, I want to do something with my life. They're driven. They are down to earth. I don't get a lot of entitled students. And so I want to work for them because I know they are working for themselves too. And it helps us get vested in making you guys successful. And that's really the big thing for me, why I love coming to work every day and doing what I'm doing.
You nailed it, Chris, and that was my answer as well. And I'll add on to that, my fellow colleagues, the instructors at Eastern, very collegial, welcoming, warm, great people. They're here because we love teaching students and we want to see you guys succeed. So
I can go next because instead of just saying ditto, which is what I feel like I want to say, right? I can say specifically why I love being a teacher education professor at Eastern is that I can still go into schools and smell the construction paper and the glue sticks, because I can take students out there and give them that hands-on practical experience. And we have very close ties with the community. And I am really committed to that work with IPSI. So that's what I really love, the opportunities that we have to do so many unique experiences out in the community.
I think sometimes, and you don't get necessarily lots of feedback, but I think when you do, from students who will tell you, you made a difference in my life, or you made a career change possible, or I found myself through courses at Eastern, not only just taking a class that I taught. I think that's a real feel good. And I think I'd like to feel like I make a difference. And I think in many cases I have made a difference. So that's what's special about Eastern for me.
And yes, I want to echo everything that everyone else has said. I absolutely first love the students. I will take a slightly different tack and try very quickly to say, one of the things that I think really helps in my department with the relationship faculty have with students is that, unlike maybe some larger schools or some higher ranked schools in terms of research productivity, like tier 1 schools, the success of my colleagues does not in any way detract from my own sort of progress through the sort of professional development system here at Eastern. At some schools, if a colleague gets a big grant and does a bunch of stuff, they get what's called a merit raise, and that merit raise sort of cuts into everybody else's raise. And so there's one person who gets a lot of money, and there may be whoever the least productive person is, that person may get nothing at all. At Eastern, we're highly unionized, everybody gets the same. And so when my colleagues are successful and when my department sort of is successful, we all sort of celebrate that, and we can share that with the students. There's not a lot of competition. And I think the whole sort of dynamic of sort of community success spills out across the whole university. So I love the students and I love my colleagues.
Awesome. All right. Well, that will wrap up our sessions for today. So thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you to you amazing faculty for joining us today after a long day of teaching, and look at you now. So I appreciate all of you taking some time out of your busy days, and thank you so much for you all that joined us during this session. As I said, we'll keep this session recorded, so we will send it out to you all if you have follow-up questions. And I know I put my email in a couple sessions there, so feel free to follow up with me directly if there's anything I can help you with. Thank you all so much, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.